You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
3, 2, 1.
We are gathered here as advisors, as scientists.
The kind of place we expect a ghost to like to wander around.
Hey, we all know that we're going down, baby.
I'll help you. I'm something of a witch.
Welcome, everybody, to the Mission Spooky Podcast. I am your incredible host, oh yeah, and I am one half of the Mega Powers. That's right, you're talking to Macho Man Cord, oh yeah. And in my corner, as always, the queen of everything, the birthday girl herself, the other half of the Mega Powers. We're talking about Hollywood Hulk Kiki, oh yeah. And of course, we can't go out to the ring without our manager. That, of course, is the Maiden of Madness herself. I'm talking about the Mushroom Maiden Kayla, yeah. Our opponent today doesn't understand what they're even going to be going against. The cream of the crop, yeah.
Is that better? Was that good? You guys like that? Okay.
Shit. I demand every single opening to be that way, except now I don't know how Hulk Hogan sounds anymore because it's been too long.
You just gotta say brother to me, oh yeah.
That's right,
and everybody's
brother,
gonna
I'm here.
understand.
That's right, brother, I'm here.
Are you ready to take on this monster?
Yeah!
Are you
let's
ready
bury
to
this
take
fucking
on
thing.
this demon?
I'm
yeah.
ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. And we're gonna walk away with the belts today, yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel like that's not really good for me, but we'll see what happens when I do that.
That's my Halloween costume this
I
year.
love it. That's great.
That voice, and that's it. And that's where it stops.
Every wrestler has a Randy Savage impression, whether you think they do or not, whether they advertise that they do or not, they all have done this voice. At least once in their life they've tried. Man, woman, child, and everything in between. Yeah, if you're in the business, you've tried to say this voice. Yeah.
I think I do a pretty good job of it. It's almost like I study promos or something.
Right?
I don't pull it out very often. That's why I'm like, yeah, it's Halloween. It's time to do this. We're taking on a big subject today. We're taking on a big opponent, so why not bring out the big guns? Okay, there's my contribution to the episode. I'm going to go now. See you.
Cord's like, I'm out. No, I need you to make great comments. When I get to the meat of this, I need Cord's like, oh my God. Oh, what? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? And the ever-present, oh my God. Oh, he does that really well.
You've been diving into this subject for a while now since we decided on what we were doing.
Yeah, okay, so here's what happened.
You got you got the same energy that I do when I talk about aliens with this subject.
You don't trust anybody about this.
So, yes, happy Halloween. It is my birthday. Woot woot. I expect tribute, especially from the peasants down in the valley. You know who you are.
Wow.
I am the queen of Halloween.
I'll get the goat.
Right? Thank you. See, Kayla understands. Sacrifices need to be made.
I'm slightly traumatized, but
I think all of us are about to be slightly traumatized.
Yeah.
but I am back with a new microphone.
Yeah, you sound crisper, clearer.
Sounds
more
awesome.
professional.
We've made you into a podcaster. It's official. It only took what, 4 episodes?
I've arrived, and now you can, in crisp audio quality, let me share my trauma with you.
Yay. So I guess we're talking about current events today. Welcome to current events class, kids.
Well, first of all, something occurred that was of great interest to me, as I guess because I'm an archaeologist and I have this sense of death and, you know, graves and burials and things being done in a proper way is important to me because of that. And also having respect for the dead in general, because as I'm studying folks, that's been instilled in me. So Kayla found out something that she's going to share with us is pretty horrible, to be honest. And then,
Yeah. Not a fan.
Not a fan. And then I had a request to talk about a very recent and still ongoing issue in Pennsylvania dealing with being a fortune teller in this state. So we're going to cover both of those things today. So yeah, it's kind of a current events day. I don't know what I'm going to call this episode.
We'll come up with something along the way.
That time we actually paid attention to the news.
And then regretted it immediately.
The episode where we watched the news.
Why?
That episode where I remember why I don't read the news.
Yep. Don't worry, sports fans. I didn't pay attention to the news still. It was just two of us.
Cordis here as our palate cleanser for the episode.
So we're going to take a break for our sponsor. And when we get back, we're going to get into it. From the heart of darkened, cryptid-filled forests, inside ancient stone castles where phantoms glide, in an abandoned house where shadows dance, comes a gothic parade of aromas that will haunt your senses. Introducing the Smell of Fear Candle Company, where horror meets wick. The Smell of Fear's scented candles transport you to spine-chilling realms where every fragrance tells a terrifying tale. Indulge in the macabre scents of this fantastical horror-themed collection. The Smell of Fear will immerse you in an experience unlike any other. Their handmade candles are made with a coconut soy blend featuring phthalate-free scents and a clean, low-soot burn. Visit their website at thesmelloffear.com to treat yourself to the new Uncanny Crate quarterly subscription box. And don't forget to join the Loyalty Lair program while you're there. And here's a treat to make your spine tingle even more. Our listeners will enjoy 15% off online purchases with code SPOOKY23. But hurry, this bone-chilling offer expires at the stroke of midnight on the last day of October. Smell of Fear candles, for those that burn brightly on the dark side. So let's do a little palate cleanser before we even start, right? Or like get us. It's not a cleanser. It's like it's an aperitif, like before we get a little, hit us with some happiness before we have to get into the shit.
All right, you guys ready for these real zingers?
I'm ready.
Hey, Kiki.
Yeah, Cord.
Why didn't the mom let the little witch go trick-or-treating with her friends?
I actually have no idea.
Because she was expelled from school.
I get it, yeah.
Hey, Kayla.
Yeah,
What do vampires take to get around on Halloween night?
I don't know. Hit me with it.
A blood vessel.
That is awesome.
Why didn't anybody want to go trick-or-treating with Dracula? Oh, yeah. Because he was a pain in the neck.
Cord, when it's time for me to get dressed up on Halloween, I like to have my hair a specific way. I gotta use a lot of scare spray. Because I like to creep it real. As Loki would say, eat, drink, trick.
We're going to have to pull the curtain back on the show a little bit. We're recording this on the real St. Paddy's Day. It is the anniversary of the Patterson-Gimlin film 56 years ago on the 20th. So I bring to you a long list of Bigfoot jokes.
Okay, that's great.
Scientists believe that one day we will find Sasquatch, just not Yeti. When they do find it, it will be no small feat.
God, I hate you so much.
Bigfoot has been spotted throwing tantrums and talking back to his parents. No wonder they call him the Sass Squatch. Did you guys know that Sasquatch is superstitious? They're always knocking on wood.
That's good. I like that one.
Okay, that's gonna be it for now. I gotta save the good ones for after Kayla's harrowing story.
I heard that Bigfoot was worried about one of his feet looking wrong because he knew that they both couldn't be right.
Fuck you.
Yes, mission accomplished. Okay, Cord to tell me to fuck off. That's what I'm here for.
And finish the recording. We're done for the day. We're done. Go home.
All right, listen, it's time to get this party startled, okay?
God damn it.
Kayla, you told me about this wonderful, uplifting story of dead folks not getting taken care of correctly.
So I'll preface this with earlier in the week, closer to last week, I guess it would be, I started getting a numerous amounts of phone calls because what I do in my spare time is I'm actually on the Speakers Bureau of the Green Burial Council, which I do a lot of outreach and I try to teach people about green burial, and I'm a big advocate for it. I think we need more green cemeteries, more green funeral homes. So that's kind of what I do. So recently, a story came out on the news and everyone was calling me and they were asking, have you seen this green funeral home in Colorado?
Can you explain what a green funeral home is?
Oh, yes. So basically, a green funeral home is a place where people go and you're not embalmed. There's no chemicals. Everything is natural. You're laid to rest in the ground with no casket, no cement barriers, anything like that. Everything is as little pollution as possible, mostly biodegradable cotton, things like that. It's the idea that dust to dust, you want everything to go in as least harmful upon your death as possible so that your body can feed the earth.
We are very big advocates of such thing.
Yes. So I received a phone call asking if I had seen the news about this green burial funeral home in Colorado. And I had said no, because I have a very strict rule in my life where I only read the news once every couple months, because it's just better for my mental health unless I think something direly needs to be looked at on the news. With further ado, I looked up the story, and I'm now going to share that with you because I went on a tangent and now you have all been dragged into my tangent.
Yay.
Today, we're going to talk about funeral homes royally fucking up. Now, I want to make a very important statement before we get into any of it. Today's episode might be unsuitable for some listeners. It covers the topic of death and decomposition in relation to funeral homes and services. This will include descriptions of extreme cases of neglect and incompetence regarding the handling of human remains of all ages, children included. If this is something you are particularly sensitive to, you might want to check out one of the other episodes instead. Our main goal is always to be respectful of the families who've been affected in these inexcusable actions, and I hope this topic will help to bring awareness and change to the community as a whole. That said, today's episode is going to paint the funeral service industry in a very negative light. And I'm not doing this for that purpose. The death care industry is my passion in life, as ironic as that may sound. And I want it to be as good, proper, and respectful as it could possibly be. These stories that I'm about to tell you are meant to bring to light an issue that I think is plaguing this country. This is not an attack. And I want everyone listening to know that most funeral homes are not like this. Most funeral directors care about their customers and the families that they help. And they are good people with an honorable mission. And I thank them for being there and continuing to be there for these people in the worst times of their life. Let's jump into it.
Most people do it the right way.
I am a green burial advocate, but traditional burial absolutely has its place and its time, and it is as valid as any other choice for death care. I recently was sent an article. In early October of 2023, the Return to Nature funeral home in Penrose, Colorado, was raided by police with a warrant to search the property due to neighbors complaining of an odor. Some said it smelled like a septic tank. Others, roadkill. What the police found was far worse. In the 2,500 square foot facility, initially 115 bodies were removed from the property in various states of decomposition. Remember, this is a green funeral home, so there's no embalming fluids used at all on the property, meaning that all of these bodies were just left there to rot, unless they were in refrigeration, which, according to all descriptions, was not available.
And even refrigeration is only gonna, delay the process.
Yeah, most states have laws on your ability to keep a body and under what conditions that you can keep it under. Most states, after 24 hours, a body has to be refrigerated 100%. There's no arguing that. It has to be kept cold or embalmed. Once a body is embalmed, it no longer has to be refrigerated. It still should be properly stored, but the refrigeration at that point, like combined the two, you can keep a body for a long amount of time, but they're not mutually exclusive. And a lot of funeral homes that do embalming exclusively sometimes don't even have refrigeration because they embalm almost immediately and they pass through the funeral home in that way. However, this funeral home didn't do any of that. And by the end of the raid, 189 bodies were removed from the property, most containing no identifying tags or papers. The idea of this funeral home is to have the body come in, because this is a natural burial. You're not going to be embalmed, so you're not going to be injected or poked and prodded with all these instruments that drain you of your fluids. So you come in and basically they wash your body, they dress your body, they keep you cold, get you ready for your funeral if you're going to have a viewing, because you can still have a viewing up to a week or so after your death in a green funeral. And then after that, they transport you either to the crematory, because this facility didn't have a crematory on site, or they transport you to the graveyard. The owner of this funeral home, his name was John Halford, has been described as a taxidermist. Yeah, keep that one. All the descriptions of this man don't talk about his experience as a funeral director or anything like that, not an embalmer. He's described as a taxidermist.
That's problematic.
He's been sued by one of the crematories he did business with for failing to pay them over $20,000 in cremation fees. They had also been evicted from another property as well for not paying their taxes. John had been contacted by the state for his failure to pay his registration fees for the business and refusing to let them inspect the property. This led to a license suspension, which it seems Halford ignored. Even still, with this suspension, it took 10 months for anyone to visit the site after the registration had expired. Colorado law states any body not being embalmed must be properly stored and refrigerated after 24 hours until a proper burial or cremation. With natural burials, this is usually only as long as a week. If they are embalmed, that time can stretch longer. We talked about that before. Recently, and I'm talking about recently as in 2 hours before I wrote this script today, more devious discoveries had been made public. You see, families were receiving their loved one's ashes with a death certificate, listing the date of cremation as is normal. As the investigation began to unfold, we've now learned that the crematories who allegedly performed these cremations have stated that their records indicate there were no such cremations performed on the listed dates on the death certificates. In summary, the bodies are unaccounted for, and the ashes are fake. 2 families are reported saying that the ashes reminded them of mixed concrete. And thanks to another trial that showed up just at the beginning of last year, they knew that they could try to mix water into these remains. And what they found was concrete. Because, and we'll talk about that second funeral home that just happened right before this. At least 10 families confirmed were told that their loved ones were cremated by the local crematory, but that crematory wasn't doing business with John Halford for at least 5 months. Remember, he owed them $20,000. There is at least one additional family from a separate crematory that also confirmed that they did not handle the body that was listed on the death certificate. And here's the crazy part. As of right now, and this is almost 2-3 weeks later, no arrests have been made. The police say they're not sure if there was any criminal wrongdoing.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, what?
Death laws are very, very tricky. You'll see every headline, and this is where I go into my rant. Every headline feels the need to point out that this was a green funeral home. Green funeral home this, green funeral home that. And I think it's important to point out that these crimes and this monster are in no way related to the practice of green burial. The things that he's done are no different than the stories I'm about to share with you of quote-unquote traditional funeral homes who have committed similar atrocities. Now, this is not giving him an out or an excuse.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Did he explain what the hell he was doing with these bodies?
He has declined any comment and any outreach from the Associated Press. The only person that he is actively working with is the FBI at this point.
Ay.
And you'll find a lot of these stories, the owners, they just remain quiet and they never release any explanation to these families about why or what they were thinking.
All right. Fuck me.
Just so I'm understanding this correctly. So, like, let's say he's a quote green mortuary, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. So you could technically, he could still have the bodies, but he could then keep them there, but then could be cremated. Is that what was happening?
You can be cremated and still have a technically quote unquote green burial. That
Okay.
all that would mean is that you weren't embalmed.
That's the part I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
I also was getting that was
Yeah.
what was going to happen. And then he obviously didn't actually return the bodies.
Yeah, there are arguments about the greenness of cremation, but I'm not here today to make that argument because it doesn't have a place in this conversation.
Gotcha.
But basically, with the green funeral home, the body goes to be prepared at the funeral home, and the funeral home will take them to a crematory to be cremated, or they will take them to a cemetery to be buried. So these bodies, which they now can only identify through DNA, they all have to go through these almost 200 bodies. Each one is going to have to be identified because the records on record at this funeral home have been proven by the crematories to be false. So we have no idea where the bodies are of these people. Likely, yes, they're in that house somewhere.
Or like in one of the cases that I was reading, and I'm not sure that you're actually going to cover this one, so I'm just going to mention it, but something that we may decide to do a whole other episode on, which is this very issue. Apparently, not too long ago, a couple years ago, somebody was taking bodies that were supposed to be donated to science, basically stealing them, and then reselling those body and body parts and getting paid through PayPal up to $100,000.
Yeah.
So,
a similar story, yes.
I
think it's important to say that the idea that this whole thing happened and had anything to do with green burial is absolutely ridiculous. This had nothing to do even with the way that these bodies were going to be buried. This was all to do with a man who couldn't pay his bill, and he most likely just couldn't send the bodies to the crematory anymore, and he didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there. I think it's really important to look into the different process before the news doesn't think about, when it plasters a headline on something, how it's painting an unfair light.
Oh, they definitely, I do believe that they absolutely do understand what they're doing. And they're probably getting paid. Honestly, this is my personal opinion. They're probably getting paid some egregious amount of money to make sure that green gets the bad because they want everybody to be a certain way. And the very story that I'm about to talk about next has a lot to do with painting a picture that basically just buries another type of person's belief system to make sure that the current belief system is what stays in place, because nobody likes anything new. It's like an ongoing problem.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. When we talk back to that point that you just brought up and the case that I had just mentioned earlier, the first and easiest case in relation to this Colorado case is another Colorado case. It's the case of Megan Hess and her mother, Shirley Cuck. These women owned the Sunset Mesa Funeral Home in Montrose, Colorado. They were recently sentenced to 20 years in prison at the beginning of this year for stealing and selling body parts sourced from their own funeral home. The report states that hundreds of body parts were stolen and sold between 2010 and 2018. Mostly sold to labs for science and medical research, even after their families declined to do so. The women would send fake ashes to the families who had no idea what had actually happened to their loved ones. They tried to excuse their actions by saying they were trying to help medical research. I personally would like to know if they've signed up to be organ donors.
Great.
The women were sentenced, I think the mother was sentenced to 15 years and the daughter was sentenced to 20 years. But they set up this organization to sell body parts to educational programs and stuff like that. And they were selling these body parts without the knowledge of the families. Whether it was they declined or they just didn't inform them, they were just selling them off as another side income. And this was actually how the families from the recent Colorado case got the idea to mix water with what they didn't think were ashes, because these women were sending fake ashes. They were sending cement mix to the families. And when that article came out, it was spread. It was so hot. Everyone was hearing about it. So it was actually, quote unquote, helpful, because if you get regular cremated remains wet, they don't solidify. They should dry out and return back to the state that they were in. Not that I recommend it. I don't recommend just randomly pulling out your loved one's ashes and getting them wet just to check. That would not be advised.
Hey, Dad, I want to just check to make sure you're real.
Yeah, Pappy really loved pool parties, so...
If you don't put it out there, I'm going to get a lot of angry emails about people fucking up their ashes.
We don't get any emails. I beg people to email me. They don't even care. They're like, what?
Wow.
Look, you'll get emailed when it's a bad situation.
Right, yeah. Yeah, guys. So we don't recommend doing that to your remains in your house. Also, mine are actually not mine personally.
Yeah.
You get it. My dad's are actually they are sealed inside of a container that's also sealed. So you have to go through quite a process to get to them. However, I do have a tube of them that we're going to be spreading separately at some point. We really haven't decided what we're going to do yet, but those I can get to and those I can see. And I'll be honest with you, I as someone who again, it's the archaeology in me. I've seen this before. It's not a big deal to me. It would be very macabre maybe to somebody else, but you can actually see that they are ashes of a person. There's bone fragments in there. It's not. It is what it is. You can also get an idea too from your animal's ashes. You can tell the difference between what is there and what is concrete.
Yeah, and a lot of crematories as well will include a kind of like a certificate of authentication.
Yeah, which is why I do recommend I'm not going to recommend anyone in particular because that's not what we're going to do here. But when I chose the crematorium for my father, because again, this was what he wanted. He said he wanted to be cremated. He did not want to be buried. We chose someone that was an owner. Now, obviously, since we're going over this, not every crematorium owner is a good guy, apparently. But I say 99.9% of them, that is what you want to do. You want to go to a mortuary, to a place that also has a crematorium. I just feel it's more professional. I don't know, Kayla, do you feel that way?
I think, and my opinion on this is always been the same. I think that you should meet your funeral director before you die. I think you should look into the funeral home that you want to do your funeral. And you should develop that relationship ahead of time because you never know whether it's you or an aunt or an uncle, a mother, father, a loved one friend in any capacity. You want to know the person who's going to be performing those functions for you. And especially when it comes to a crematory, there's a lot of questions that you can ask your funeral director. Do you do it yourself? What do you use? And do you provide a certificate of authenticity? Proof of this and that. It's important to interview. And I know it's an uncomfortable subject, but this is also why you can meet with an end-of-life planner. And these are people who will come and they will talk to you and they'll write out a whole plan for you that you can give to your kids. You can put it with your will. You can do whatever you want with it. But it helps you plan and choose reputably so that no one can take advantage of you or your family when you are in a moment of weakness. But moving away from Colorado, the L. Barnett Family Funeral Home in Johnstown, New York, also made the news in 2022 when families called authorities complaining they weren't receiving updates on the status of their loved ones' cremations. When that funeral home was raided, several bodies were found in various states of decomposition. It was also discovered that the funeral director's license was expired and that the funeral home in question was never licensed to begin with. This brings scrutiny to the argument that people make on the Colorado case that if the laws were more stringent, maybe the person wouldn't have gotten away with this. because New York has some of the most strict laws for funeral directors and handling bodies. Aside from the usual charge of larceny and concealment of a corpse, the funeral director was also charged with child endangerment, as he had left these decaying bodies within reach of his children's toys.
Yay.
What?
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Yep,
That-
you heard me right.
Oh, what?
I'm picturing, like, this is a bad image. You might have to. I'm picturing, like, the
no.
kid playing with
No.
Hot Wheels and, like, time to drive over the mountain. Bring.
Oh my god.
Like, no.
Oh my god. That is I can see that very clearly, yes.
Yeah, I have a really good imagination, Cord. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the man and his child or children, I wasn't able to confirm, lived in this house as well, which is not uncommon for a funeral director to live in the funeral home. Usually they live upstairs and then the funeral home is downstairs. But this guy really brought work home with him when he decided to just leave a body lying right next to his kids' toys.
What the fuck?
Yes, you heard me right. The man and his children lived in this house as well. We see the same falsified records in this case as we do in the others. The death records don't match the crematory records. The owner, Barnett, had even been pulled over by police while transporting what appeared to be a body in the back of the car, or hearse, most likely. Dozens of cremated remains were found with no identification, some of them just laying open. And 2 bodies were found in Barnett's garage with a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Ironically, the funeral home is right next door to a courthouse.
I'm sorry. So, bodies don't smell very good after they've been laying around for a while. And the courthouse is right there. So how nobody noticed?
I know. I think this is we're already on the 3rd example of licenses being expired. So I think me as a consumer, the first thing I want everybody to know is you can absolutely look up if a business license is current and a funeral director's license is current, just as you can do with a medical doctor or a therapist. I encourage you to do this whether you know your funeral director or not, because that takes us to 2014. In 2014, we come to Fort Worth Funeral Home in Texas, where they were found to be hiding 8 unrefrigerated bodies, including 1 infant, who were removed from the building in various states of decay. When speaking with a family member of one of the bodies that had been lying there for over a month, the owner was quoted as saying, "Yes, we may have dropped the ball."
Oh, may have, huh?
Maybe, may have.
Wow.
We might have fucked up a little bit here.
That's like, don't admit guilt, but...
The bodies were found after the owners were evicted from the property, and the property owner decided to do a walkthrough of the property to check for damages. Upon his walkthrough, he found these bodies lying on stretchers and in caskets, as well as the infant who was placed in a plastic container. The owners, Derek and Dondre Johnson, had failed to pay rent since March, so by July, they were well due for an eviction. Dondre was quoted as saying, "Business as usual until our landlord came today and said he wanted to put us out." He said this as he was being booked into county jail for failure to pay child support. This was not the first time the brothers had failed to pay rent either. They had been evicted from their previous funeral home location for the same reason. Their funeral license status was even on a do not renew status. The last month of operation, the business didn't even have a funeral director on staff. The brothers had lost their previous business license in 2010 for, take a guess, failure to pay. They got around this problem by having Dondre's wife apply for the license instead.
We've seen that in other types of criminal activity, where you just have your wife do it instead.
Yeah. So the most horrifying part is for the last month, they were handling bodies. They had no funeral director at all. So they were just people handling the body however they saw fit. They had seen the director do it before, so, I'm sure that I can handle it the same way, right? Or maybe that just explains why they just decided to let 7 of their most recent bodies lay to rot.
That's just not cool, man.
This brings me to the last case that I wrote down for today. We're going to leave it off in Detroit, Michigan. Stopping in at the Cantrell Funeral Home. This next story is interesting because there wasn't just a period of time in this story where things got out of control. There have been reports for decades about misconduct and improper handling of bodies at this funeral home. And it wasn't just one person who was under scrutiny either. The original owner of this funeral home was Raymond Cantrell Sr., who opened the business in the 1950s. In 1964, he moved to the final location and adopted the motto, "Where beauty lives." This was one of the most successful Black-owned funeral homes in Detroit. And when he was first opened, many people had nothing but very good things to say about Ray and his work. He had 2 children from his first marriage. The important thing to take from this being his son, Ray Jr. Now, as is common in the funeral home industry, his son grew up to also become a funeral director, and they worked together at the business until trouble started between the two. There were many claims that Ray and Ray Sr. hired incompetent embalmers, people who were unlicensed, to perform their embalming for them. This was seen in a couple pretty graphic ways. This was the early 90s. A man went to the funeral home to be embalmed so that he could be transported home for a funeral across state lines. Because most states have the rule that if you're going to be transported across state lines, you have to be embalmed. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. When he arrived to his family for his funeral, the family was horrified when they opened the casket and saw maggots bursting from their dead loved one's mouth and nose. The embalming process had failed. So this family was absolutely traumatized. Another woman was described by her family as having been turned into a monster. Before her funeral, she was leaking fluid from every orifice, and her lips had swollen to 3 times their normal size. When confronted, the funeral home claimed this was just an allergic reaction to embalming fluids, and the family chose to have a closed casket. The daughter was quoted as saying, "That is the last memory that I have of my mother."
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I can confirm this is the reason why I did not allow my own husband to identify his father's body. I did it. I knew what it was going to look like. So I wanted a family member, though, to identify it. And since I would not be as quite emotionally scarred by seeing someone who's been dead for a week, that is not the image that you want to have of your relative. If, you know, like I in a professional manner, have seen many, many, many dead bodies. So it is what it is. So that's why I volunteered to do it, because his sister, they did not need to see what I saw.
Absolutely.
That is just the absolute worst. I can't even imagine like having to go through that. I feel for those people.
I feel for every single family in every single one of these stories. And
they're
going through it. They're still going through it. There are families who don't even know yet that they're going to be going through it. And it's awful. It's awful, and it's negligent, and it makes me angry. The third event happened after a family had paid for a funeral. They had chosen a casket, provided the suit for the funeral to the funeral home so they could dress him up. When the family showed up to the funeral, the mother looked down into the casket to see that it was not her son laying in the casket, but a stranger that they did not know.
Oh my God.
Because the funeral home had dressed the wrong man.
Oh, Lord.
They did end up fixing this mistake, but the damage is already done by that point. Ray Jr. was allegedly the main source of that last problem. Like, he stated as specifically he was the one who dealt with that problem. So it never specifically states how many of these embalming issues were specifically Ray Jr.'s fault and where Ray Sr. comes into it. But Ray Jr. did find himself in legal trouble when it was revealed that he was stealing from the family business. And not just that, he was also accused of looting the estates of his trusting families as well. He would convince the families who couldn't afford to pay for a funeral to name him the representative of the estate His licenses were revoked until he could pay back over $40,000 in owed fees. And he was ousted from the business for roughly 14 years.
Whew, man.
Now, there is one situation that I know the father specifically was involved in. The funeral home by this point had been just like assaulted with these reports of negligence. So upon an inspection, when they came in to check out the place, they found the body of an infant. When they returned the following year for a follow-up inspection, the child was still there. At this point, according to records, that would mean the child had been at the funeral home for over 4 years. When confronted about why the child was still in the funeral home, the owner, Ray Sr., claimed that the mother didn't have the money to bury the child. She still owed $600, and they refused to do an act of goodwill to bury it for her. So the child remained.
Wow.
The child was
That's
in that funeral
ridiculous.
home longer than it was living on the earth. Over $600, just saying.
Yeah.
The father continued to run the funeral home well into his old age when he passed away in 2016. I think he was in his 90s or close to it. When he passed away, the funeral home didn't pass to his new wife, who was around 40 years younger than him, I think, at the time. See, she had already, with her husband's money, spun off a different funeral home that she and her daughter, a licensed funeral director, were running. Therefore, Ray and his original funeral home did not pass to his eldest daughter because she had already passed away. It meant that it would return to his son, probably the worst possible hands that it could have come back to. After 14 years, Ray Jr. returned, and the reports of negligence continued. Finally, the funeral home was shut down, and another inspection was performed. They discovered 269 containers of cremations and 24 bodies still scattered about the property. After that, they left, assuming they had found all there was to find. That was until they got an anonymous letter. The letter claimed they had missed something very important in the funeral home. It instructed them to go into the funeral home to a very specific part of the house. To go and look into the ceiling, they would find a hidden staircase behind a drop ceiling that led to a crawl space in the attic, inside which they found the remains of 11 babies. More horrifying still, some of the bodies that were claimed to be buried were never buried. Their funerals had been paid in full, some in the thousands of dollars. But instead of burying these children in the grave sites where they were meant to go, the funeral director brought them back to the funeral home and stuck them in the ceiling. Most of these bodies had no identification whatsoever, no record of who they were or who to call to claim them. And cremated remains are not as easy as you might think to identify. Yes, they do have bone fragments, but rarely do these bone fragments contain any DNA enough to compare to anybody else because they've been burned to the point of unrecognition.
Ugh.
Some of the bodies that they found were shown to be decades old almost, 10 years or more. And not long after this investigation, not far from this exact funeral home, a completely unrelated funeral home, investigators would find over 60 decomposing child corpses.
I just want to know why.
Yeah, they
Why would you do that?
yeah, like kind of what was the time? What was the era for this? What was going on?
The business ran from the 1950s until very recently. Like
Okay.
late 2000s or early 2000s.
I mean, I was just looking at how many unclaimed bodies there were recently just in the Philadelphia area. And it's pretty staggering, actually, how many unclaimed people there are, either just because they do not have relatives or because people can't afford how much it costs to bury someone. But
Oh yeah, that's one of the main reasons why bodies like linger at funeral homes is because, I mean, funeral homes don't want to get rid of your loved one's body. They don't want to send somebody somewhere or send them to a potter's field. They don't want to do that.
But that is an option as far as you as a person have the ability to, or family member can go down there and sign it over to the state, and then that's what happens. So at least the body is not just laying around for years, somewhere. I think for me, like that time period, there's like no excuse for that.
Yeah,
we
and
already
like I
had
said,
laws in place to protect people's remains from sitting around.
all of these stories are from the 90s and up. Most
Ugh.
recently, like within the last 10 years. Except for this last one, which had just multiple reports of shit going down. And some of these is just, I can see why, like, embalming snafus, like, it's hard to shut a whole place down over a couple of those. But the whole keeping bodies for 4 years.
I don't understand why somebody, having fully been compensated for the burial, would do the burial but not put the body in and just squirrel it away in your fucking attic. Why would you do that? Like, to what purpose?
That's what scares me. Like, what? Well, because in the attic, it was specifically children. I didn't even think it was like children. It was like babies. So what reason, especially when these mothers, at least the one mother said, she paid for the funeral in full. They had the funeral. Why did the body not go in the ground? Why?
Unless the age old, like, I'm going to make extra money off of it. And then that didn't happen. So then you're left with a body and you just leave it up there. Just because, I mean, we know from we just talked about the laws of, sending remains to be used in medical facilities, for example. Unfortunately, children is one that's usually never signed over. I'm not going to let someone dissect my child.
Yeah.
So that could be, like the real question then is how many children's corpses were possibly, and this is all theoretical, of course, but what if this is what they were doing and they were selling them? What if how many actually got buried and how many actually got sold to somewhere else?
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird.
Much as it sucks, investigations cost money. So who's going to exhume all those graves and see? Because the family can't pay for it.
Right. Not
They
unless
could
a
barely afford the
massive,
funeral.
I was saying, not unless a massive investigation is opened up into it at the time, that was going on. So then the exhumation would be paid for by the police investigation, or could even be FBI, depending on how fucked up it is. But I don't know.
Yeah. Now, this is just a short list of the dozens of articles that came up when I searched this. And all of these articles come from reputable news sources like, the Associated Press and the BBC and all that kind of stuff. It's common knowledge. And yet the laws don't seem to be changing on the regulation of these funeral homes, not based on green or traditional, but based on common sense, best practices. Where are the investigations? Where are the inspections to make sure that the dates match on fucking death certificates? Like, really?
I guess that's a question, right? I mean, I guess out of the three of us, you would probably know the most, but like, is there an auditing system in place here that just failed, or is there no audits on these places? Because if there's nothing, that is like a problem, obviously.
Or is it like the restaurant industry where you slip somebody a whole bunch of money to let that slide?
True.
Every state in the country has different laws. And just like we talked about, what do you need to move a body?
A driver's license.
A driver's license, unless you're in New York. But
yeah,
it's every state. The funeral directors are overseen. They do have a board. There are state regulations and state offices whose job it is to make sure that the licenses of the businesses are up to date and the licenses of the directors are up to date. But they're not funded enough and they're not staffed enough with the amount of funeral homes that we have to be able to go into all these places. And it's the same problem that the FDA has, or the USDA, or any regulatory facility. How do you go into all these mom and pop funeral homes across the country? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
even OSHA auditing has staffing problems. They can't even find freaking auditors for OSHA.
Is it cute? Is it sexy? Is it OSHA compliant?
That's beautiful. And I just included the cases of like improper body storage. I didn't even get into the story in 2017 from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, where a funeral director was charged for taking pictures of her clients' dead bodies to, quote unquote, gross out her friends.
Oh my God.
Because that's such a professional thing to do.
And I specifically know somebody who was one of the dead bodies in that case. So that one hits very close to home for me.
That's super cool of them.
It was so nice of her, really.
You didn't even get into the Georgia one, right? The tri-state Georgia thing that was like massive. It was like over 300 bodies and nobody even knew where the hell they came from.
Yeah, like I felt like some of them like would have been almost a whole episode on
It
their
is.
own.
That one is
What?
literally a whole ass episode. Yeah,
Honestly,
and then
the Detroit case has a lot more nuance to it, and like just
I'm
because
actually-
it's so old, like that it went over so many years. There's so much detail to it. It could probably be a book.
that is one that I'm familiar with. Actually, that case when you're talking about it, I know that one.
There's exploration videos on YouTube back when like the building was abandoned initially and like people were going into it and looking around and the caskets were still in there. Last I heard about it, it was being turned into like a public health center, which I just find, I mean, it's good. It's good to put something for the community, like a community center, but like, I don't know if I could get past the dead babies in the ceiling.
Yeah.
At least this is not like a child's recreational center.
Oh my God.
Like I just can't help but like think like, you know, people don't get into death care really unless they're like wanting to help people. So like what went wrong? Like what happened? And at what point why was there not a point where you looked at what you were doing and thought, this is getting a little out of hand? Like maybe I should stop this or do something about this. Like I don't get it.
I have one word for you, Cord. Greed.
Money.
Well,
Yeah, it's greed, Cord. That's it. That's all it is. Money talks.
I hate people.
It's the same as a doctor getting into medicine just because he wants the money, but he doesn't really care that much about the people. You know, I had a doctor do that to me just this week. Actually, it's like, oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, the main suspect in this case too, Ray Jr., he was born into this industry. Like, there's no knowing. I think his sister as well also held a funeral director's license. So, like, did they have that initial compassion? And who knows? Even was Ray Jr. even aware? Somebody was aware because somebody sent a unnamed anonymous letter, and if they hadn't sent that letter when they did construction for this building, whatever it was going to turn into, they would have just had babies dropping from the ceiling.
Oh,
That sounds like maybe an embalmer or someone that worked for them knew about it.
Found it.
Yeah.
Found the secret door.
Because they
Or helped them put him there.
They never found out
Ay.
who wrote that letter, as far as I could find.
That is bonkers. That's crazy.
Well, I think it's time. I think it's time for I think it's time for a palate cleanser, right? We're good.
You want a palate
Due
cleanser?
for a palate cleanser.
We're good to shore that up.
Hey guys, this one's a little weird. What do you call a sketchy looking Bigfoot?
A Sasquatch.
A Sasquatch.
Sketchy sus.
Yeah, I heard the other day that Yeti in the Himalayas, they declared their own independent state. Yeah, it's an abomination. You know, Jess and you guys, you might be getting a little sick of me telling all these abominable snowman jokes. Yeti, keep cracking them. Kind of like this one. How is Bigfoot so good at rock climbing?
I'm gonna guess the big feet.
Anyone?
Yeah, I would.
He
yeah.
always finds the biggest footholds.
Hey, Cord. I heard that Bigfoot finally got married. He found his soulmate.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it. He found his soulmate. Get it?
Okay. Here's. Okay. I got one last one for you. Are you ready? How do Yeti stay regular? I'm talking about digestive system here. How do they stay regular?
Please tell me. I'm dying to know.
Fiber One bars.
Close. They always know when to go. Get
Ha.
it?
Cord, I just saw a great movie about Bigfoot. It was a full-length feature film.
I get it.
All right, so I'm going to talk really, really fast because time is running out. Recording time is running out. Holy shit balls. I have I don't know, 6 pages. What does it say? One of
Good thing I didn't come with anything with a bunch of stupid jokes.
8 pages.
I told you weren't gonna need anything today, Corey.
Jeez Louise.
Okay, all right, here we go. This has been requested that I talk about this. I'm going to take on the tarot card reader story from Hanover, Pennsylvania. It's gone viral. I actually saw this on TikTok before it even went on the news because of just the algorithm. Thank you, TikTok, for that. She had over 200,000 followers by the end of the day. But there is a separate story I want to talk about, too. It's about the conviction of a fortune teller. So these are 2 separate stories. Both of them are from Pennsylvania. So I wasn't really going to cover the Hanover incident at all on this podcast, but like I said, the story kind of went viral and I'm making a promise I'm going to keep good on it. But first of all, I'm going to tell you that there is a law in Pennsylvania that prohibits you from being a fortune teller.
Really?
Yep. I am going to read this to you guys directly from the PA General Assembly website. It's a lot of words. Get ready for Title 18, Section 7104. Fortune telling. The offense is defined as a person is guilty of a misdemeanor of the 3rd degree if he pretends for gain or lucre to tell fortunes or predict future events by cards, tokens, the inspection of the head or hands of any person, or by the age of anyone, or by consulting the movements of the heavenly bodies, or in any other manner, or for gain of lucre, pretends to effect any purpose by spells, charms, necromancy, or incantation, or advises the taking or administering of what are commonly called love powders or potions, or prepares the same to be taken or administered, or publishes by card. Yes, I swear to God, this is one sentence. Circular, sign, newspaper, or other means that he can predict future events, or for gain or lucre pretends to enable anyone to get or to recover stolen property, or to tell where lost property is, or to stop bad luck, or to give good luck, or to put bad luck on a person or animal, or to stop or injure the business or health of a person, or shorten his life, or to give success in business, enterprise, speculation, and games of chance, or to win the affection of a person, or to make one person marry another, or to induce a person to make or alter a will, or to tell where money or other property is hidden, or to tell where to dig for treasure, or to make a person to dispose of property in favor of another. Holy fuck.
Jeez, breathe, will you? Crap, put a period in there.
That is the period. Period.
Fuck, man.
Section B.
It's like, shut up.
I know.
Oh God, she's still going.
Section B, advertise as evidence. Any publication contrary to this section may be given an evidence to sustain the indictment. Okay. And then section C, this is important, competency of the witness. Any person whose fortune may have been told shall be competent witness against a person charged with violating this section. That's actually kind of fucking important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get into that for a moment before I get to the rest. So to sum up all of those words, you can't take money from folks to predict the future, or say that you can reach their dead relatives, necromancy, or curse a person or business, or make them alter a will, or cause them to have bad luck. And most non-believers, as I will get into later, think this statute is there to protect us poor country folk because we don't know no better. But really, this statute makes a case for magic to be real. I mean, you're basically saying that as long as you can produce the wanted outcome, your neighbor's farm is cursed, or Uncle Charlie's changing that will so you get the whole estate, or maybe Marge get the man of her dreams. As long as no one is getting swindled, it should be all good, right?
Sure.
Because otherwise, this is an unenforceable law. I mean, the only folks who are going to turn you in are those who are upset because the magic didn't work.
True.
Just keep that in mind. But where did this law come from? Okay, so it is from 1861. I mean, this seems a little weird for the year because the only witch trial in Pennsylvania took place in 1684. Why is this still on the books? Okay, so I'll tell you why. When we adopted English law after William Penn's death, 1718, the statute was, this was English law that we adopted, right? Conjuration, witchcraft, and dealing with evil and wicked spirits is forbidden, okay? But that ended in the 1750s. And then we have this jump to 1861 where all of a sudden we've got this like back on the books again. In the 1700s, with the Quakers leading the way, Pennsylvania was unique in its religious tolerance. By 1860, though, we had Presbyterians, Roman Catholics, Lutherans, German Reformed, and Methodists all living together, plus a whole bunch of other denominations of Christianity, all trying to live together. At this time, one could argue that Pennsylvania was committed to the legal equality of all denominations. Minimal religious tests were required to hold an office. There was a separation of church and state that had been there for like forever anyway. Freedom of belief, because that's the way the Quakers believed anyway. And autonomy for the institutional churches. That's actually kind of important because the Moravians, a lot of people don't realize the Moravians here in Bethlehem, they had autonomy over Bethlehem. They basically ran the whole thing, okay? There was no tithe, no establishment, no persecution of religious practices so long as the peace was not disturbed. So let's go back to 1820, though, because that is when a very important book was published for Pennsylvania, and that is The Long Lost Friend.
Hey.
There we go, right? We know. Again, we have spent an exorbitant amount of time on the subject of Brockerai and Hexerai, and those episodes are 41 and 75. 41 is the Blymeyer case. 75 is the Powwow and Christian Hexerai and Brockerai. We get into it a lot. That is our folk magic here in Pennsylvania. I've got a few side quests in there, quote, hex-related deaths. I'll get into those in a minute. But what was happening in the mid-1800s that might have caused a, quote, disturbance of the peace? Well, we have the Fox sisters in Rochester, New York, starting out in 1844. They were two mediums famous for alleged communication with spirits, sparking the spiritualist movement here in the U.S. It had already been going on for a little bit in England, and it was going back and forth between, a lot of these spiritualists were in London, and then they'd come here, and then, back and forth. Their methods were later revealed to be fraudulent. By 1850, experts were already saying that these girls were just rapping on the table by themselves to make the noises, right? They weren't really talking to nobody. One of them would actually reveal by 1866 that it was fake. So would the swindling of folks by early spiritualists be a reason for this Pennsylvania law? I think it's more sinister and is targeted at one religion in particular, the fancy Pennsylvania Dutch. So the spiritualist movement in the U.S. was strong from the 1840s all the way to the 1920s. Brockerai had already been shared in a published form for 47 years. For more than 47 years, hell of a lot longer than that, folks were going to their local broker for everything from illness to spiritual guidance to curse removal. And all the while, brokers received both monetary and barter items for their service. You see, they didn't always ask for money. Sometimes it was, hey, I'm a little short today. Thanks for helping me remove a curse, but I've got a bunch of pies and I've got vegetables. And, broker's like, yeah, that's sure, man. Anything that helps me out, I'm helping you out, right? It's a barter system. I honestly think that with the addition of multiple denominational for-profit churches, because as far as I'm concerned, sorry guys, every church is for profit, those in power sought to curtail a broker and the ability for them to make money from their religious beliefs. And they simply used the fakers of the spiritual movement as an impetus for the law. Because if you take a very close look at that law that I just spewed out, there are a lot of similarities to actual spells mentioned in The Long Lost Friend, such as removing curses from humans and animals, helping to find lost objects, preventing malicious injury, how to win games when someone's participating in them. The list goes on. Not surprisingly, this statute is then upheld again in 1939. Why? Because of the Hex murders. They had already taken place. And although I've talked about how two of those, though, are mistaken as murders having anything to do with magic at all. But it was too late because by then it was already in the minds of the police and the locals that Jhariah was bad. It's causing people to die. It's causing the death of people. Again, go listen to those episodes. I get into it.
Yep.
The last time that this statute was upheld was 1972. And why? Because what did we just have happen? In 66, we had the, quote, satanic-driven Manson murders, and by the 70s, the rise of LaVeyan Church of Satan. And why would they ever think of overturning it during the ridiculous satanic panic of the 1980s and the 90s? We have been labeled as a conservative commonwealth until our most recent history, honestly, although we have always been a tolerant one. So it's time to get rid of this ridiculous law and have readers, tarot readers, fortune tellers obtain licenses like they do in Massachusetts, the very commonwealth that previously killed folks for witchcraft. Yes, that's right. One only needs to obtain a license to legally fortune tell in Salem, which really led the way for the best description of what was expected from the individual when obtaining a license. They are on point, right? So other states that have adopted this idea, they go to Salem, Massachusetts law, because each of those licenses is by city. They go to Salem and they get all the information. For those, though, wishing to fight this law that we currently have, we need only look at one particular case. Argello versus the city of Lincoln, Nebraska. This case is from Nebraska. As I said, it is interesting because the reasoning in it concludes that fortune telling is protected under the First Amendment. And the quote is, if the citizens of Lincoln wish to have their fortunes told or to believe in palm reading or phrenology, they are free to do so under our system of government and to patronize establishments or quote professionals who purport to be versed in such arts. Government is not free to declare certain beliefs. For example, that someone can see the future, forbidden. Citizens are at liberty to believe that the earth is flat, that magic is real, and that some people are prophets. End quote.
Okay.
So I will also, in a little bit down the bottom here, get into a lawyer from Pennsylvania who, well, let's just say he has a different view on the First Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
So is it specifically, it's talking about, I heard necromancy, fortune telling. So what about like mediums in general? Because like I know people, actually I live in a town where there's like a fortune teller in town.
Right. And I'll get into that when I get down to the fortune teller, because the one in Hanover, we'll talk more about that in a second. But yes, it does cover necromancy, incantation, spells, charms, the whole, basically it's, and the movements of the heavenly bodies, which people are also saying, well, isn't that also Jesus? Yeah, it's there. I'll get into that.
What about past life readings? It's technically the past. You never said I couldn't claim to know the past.
Right. Also, I want to point out that a lot of this says he this and he that. There's never once a she or he, she in this law, which just goes to show it was written in the 1860s and it never fucking changed. And so as a woman, I'd be like, well, I'm sorry, but that clearly says he. The whole thing is about men not being able to do this. I want to make a case for that. Right now.
Wow. So I'm not allowed to do nothing, huh?
That's right.
Wow.
You can't do shit, Cord.
Blame your peers.
I can't do necromancy
No, Cord.
in my own damn state.
I know. It's bullshit, isn't it?
Freaking bullcrap, man.
Don't tread on me.
No, Cord. See, you just can't do any of those things for money. You can do them. You just can't ask people for cash. Okay.
Dang.
I'll get into
I'll just have to have them give me a healthy donation afterwards.
Pumpkin roll.
Ah.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let me talk about a real case here, and that concerns a woman who is now serving time for fortune telling in Pennsylvania. I will point out that in Massachusetts, for example, one does have to pass a criminal background check before being able to obtain a license for fortune telling. And of course, the Commonwealth makes money off of those people as well. I've seen up to renewal of that license being $275 a year. So, you know,
Yeesh.
This woman, 37-year-old April Jowanowicz, also known as Victoria S. Miller, has been charged with the crime of fortune telling more than any other person in Pennsylvania in the 21st century. She was charged twice with third-degree misdemeanor of fortune telling since 2000. Which, of course, is a crime that is rarely prosecuted in this state. She had previously never been convicted of fortune telling. The others were criminal mischief. Loki would like a word. In 2009, she pled guilty to the summary count of criminal mischief for taking $23,000 from a woman under the pretense of removing a curse.
Oh, my Lord.
In 2011, she pled guilty to a felony count of theft by deception. Again, Loki would like to have a word. For taking more than $35,000 from another woman, promising to remove a dark cloud over her head. When I read these numbers and I read this out loud after I've read it a million times and I wrote it, it just is like, these people had $23,000 and $35,000 separate accounts to give to this person? Like, what? How? I don't know if I feel bad for them or not at this point. Okay, so Iwanowitch was sentenced to 2 years of probationary supervision and was prohibited from holding herself out there to be a fortune teller again. Okay, so she couldn't say, I'm a fortune teller. So her current charges were taking more than $10,000 from two women between 2009 and 2011, or 2009 and 2010. She sold them various items, claiming that they would rid them of spells, curses, and evil spirits and cleanse their chakras. The case was scheduled to go to trial. She was going to face a maximum jail term of 1 year if convicted. If found guilty, she'd also face prison time for violating her probation from the 2011 case. She's got a whole bunch of misdemeanors here of taking money from people, is the point, right? It turns out that her parents were also grifters and had been convicted in 1995 of swindling another woman out of $34,000 by promising to remove a curse. Man, they are really good at removing curses, apparently. $34,000.
Well, we're just talking about family businesses today.
Right. Yeah, we are.
Talk about being born into it. What if she gets out of prison? Now, this is just my thought. You get out of prison, stop calling yourself a fortune teller, start calling yourself a fortune assumer.
Fantastic.
A fortune guesser.
Right, a fortune guesser.
Tell me all the dumb things that you're doing, and I can assume what might happen to you based off of those things.
So she was supposed to go to trial, but they went for a plea deal, and I believe she is serving 14 months in jail. In those other previous cases, she had not previously served any time because she returned money back to them. FYI.
So, what was this lady's name again?
Iwanowitch. Isn't it kind of funny? You want a witch?
As in, like, you want a witch? Hey, that's fortunate because I happen to be something of a witch myself.
Yeah. Now, if you look up that last name, Iwanowitch, I did not have time to look into this family, but there is a Florida woman who ripped off a Texas woman for an egregious amount of money, $1.6 million.
Woo!
With the same last name, but much younger. I think she was only 28. I don't know. That's a very strange last name to me. Iwanowitch. Like, I never saw that name before until I did this particular research for this crime. And now I'm seeing like that name, and there's other women from other states with that last name. And I'm like, is this a family enterprise? What the fuck is going on?
It straight up sounds like a pseudonym.
It does, though.
It sounds made up.
Well, her made-up name is Victoria S. Miller. The S stands for 7, by the way, guys.
Why would it be? Why would? Oh.
She was born on July 7th, 1977.
Why would you not keep your fortune teller name as Iwanowitch?
I don't know.
That's.
Does it sounds like a bad fortune teller remix of Juwana Man?
So I just want to yeah.
Joanna Man. That movie exists.
So that's an example of someone who clearly is very possibly grifting. Okay, like there's a lot of nonsense going on there, and but here's the thing: the people involved that were supposedly quote swindled, they freely believed her. Okay, so you got to look at it this way too. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say that they're completely they're victims here, because they literally were like, oh God, yes, I have a family curse on me. something's wrong with me. Because there are people out there that want to just blame shit like that instead of taking responsibility for their own actions. Then they take action, and their action is to give somebody a ridiculous amount of money to fix a problem that doesn't exist. That's on them again. Like, what the fuck? You made that choice. You gave that woman $32,000 to fix a problem that didn't exist. How is that woman's fault? It's your fault.
I would have to reevaluate, like, a deep dive into the mental state of the people, who are involved, because, it depends what's going on with them.
Right. I can tell you that what I found was at least one of them, and they're very like sketchy about telling the names of the victims here. One woman went to the police finally and said, this woman has been telling me to do these things, and she convinced me that I have this curse and I want my money back. And what do I do? And then the police are like, oh, great. Well, fortune telling is illegal in this state, so we can go get her on that. And then she gave the money back. Mm-hmm. So that's at least one time that I could find that someone legitimately went to the police and said, I think I'm being swindled. The other times, I can't seem to find anything at all about how she got caught, because that was my big question, was like, did someone turn her in? Whatever. So of all the times, only one woman that I could find actually turned her in. And I understand from a certain point of view, and I'll get into what the lawyer says later, this whole concept of, well, it's there to keep gullible people safe. Well, then we need to reevaluate a lot of situations in which gullible people believe a lot of bullshit. So by that logic, then Donald Trump should definitely have already been in jail 10,000 times over for lying to people and getting them to do dumb shit in his name. How is that any different than you having a dumbass law from 1860 about swindling people out of money? He's swindling people out of money right now. I need money for my lawyer. Well, fuck you, dude. You're supposed to be a millionaire. Where's all your fucking money? So we wind up running this like really thin ice of, what do you mean by gullible? And I'll get into that in a minute. But
and I mean, you look into churches as well. I mean,
wait.
All right, I'll hold on.
A lot of shit. No, now this is ongoing. Okay, this is happening. You can go on Facebook right now and read this shit. This is the case of the Hanover, Pennsylvania fortune teller, tarot card reader, Beck Lawrence. So I ran into this on TikTok. I had no idea I was going to actually be talking about this, but I am. First of all, I want to give our folks a little idea of the area of Hanover really quickly, because I know a lot of people are not from here, so they're not going to know what the heck we're talking about. Hanover, Pennsylvania is just about 5 miles north of the Mason-Dixon line, and it's got about 16,000 living there currently. Quick history lesson: the Mason-Dixon line was created over a border dispute between PA, Delaware, Maryland, and West Virginia. Later, it's informally known as the line between the free states and the slave states. So you're only 5 miles away from Maryland, basically. This is where you get Dixie and Dixieland from, this little area here where the Mason-Dixon line is. Good old heart of Dixie being also the southern states that ceded from the Union. Hanover, unfortunately, saw a lot of death come through it during the Civil War. And that is actually, I just want to mention it because that's something we're going to cover very soon. In a few weeks, we're actually going to be covering Gettysburg with a guest that I'm very excited about. And we may then later on, I'm going to do a separate episode touching on this area, because a lot of the dead from the Battle of Gettysburg wind up getting buried here in Hanover. Some of them are subsequently going to be exhumed and reburied at the Gettysburg Memorial Cemetery on the orders of Abraham Lincoln. Just want to throw that in there because we're just talking about exhuming bodies. So this is from basically the breakdown of what happened. I took directly from the New York Times, October 14th, 2023. This is just a rundown of what happened. So Beck Lawrence is the owner of Serpent Key Shop and Sanctuary in Hanover, Pennsylvania. The shop was recently featured in a spooky season edition of Main Street Hanover newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter introducing new business owners in the borough, and Serpent Key happened to open up in January of this year. A few days after the article was published, on October the 5th, 2023, Chief of Police Chad E. Martin, and yes, he's a Chad, visited Serpent's Key and informed them that any complaints about the readings would lead to an investigation. He cited this archaic law that states that, it makes it illegal to predict the future for money. But according to Lawrence, he didn't offer any other advice or anything. It was a warning. Chief Martin then clarifies that he was not there to arrest or press charges, but again warned that he would return if there were any complaints. It seems as though the only reason that he showed up was because of this newsletter where the Serpent's Key was introduced. Lawrence does offer tarot card readings. They range from $10 to $100. They're either in person or over Zoom. The services are advertised with signs that clearly state they are for entertainment purposes only, per Commonwealth law. That is how everybody gets around this. You have to put up that this for entertainment purposes only. You're not actually telling the future. The shop also sells handmade merchandise like candles and soaps, and books like The Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, a book that I owned and I recommend. And also shout out to Matt. I posted recently and said this is something that we will be talking about because he really wanted to also bring this forward and be like, this is a problem. And you'll understand why. So following Chief Martin's visit, Lawrence describes the incident in a series of TikTok videos. This is where me, along with 200,000 other people, start catching on to what's happening. And they expressed feelings of being intimidated during the visit. And yes, Beck identifies as they. Chief Martin defended his visit on Facebook, referring to the law again that prohibits fortune telling for gain or money. So Lawrence, who studied tarot and witchcraft for 13 years, argued that tarot readings are meant to provide clarity and not definitive predictions of the future. I'm going to read Chief Martin's Facebook post here in a moment, but the law against fortune telling is rarely prosecuted, as I've said before, and all the businesses in the Commonwealth have this disclaimer saying that their services are for entertainment purposes only. Local news organizations have ridiculed the statute, listing it among antiquated or amusing laws in Pennsylvania. We are now a laughingstock. I just want y'all to know. Again.
Yay.
Right, just now.
Not only is Philadelphia free for all for motorcycles and four-wheelers in the middle of the fucking city, but now we got this going on. I know, just now. That was definitely being sarcastic. Okay, so despite the controversy, some argue that such laws protect people from being scammed by fraudulent fortune tellers. And this is a whole other bag of worms that I will get to at the end. But let me read you Chief Martin's Facebook page response because it's golden and it's still available. This is what I like to call a statement from the Popo. Quote, "The purpose of the following message is to respond to recent social media attention given to Pennsylvania Title 18, Section 7104, fortune telling. The statute prohibits, among other things, someone from predicting the future by the reading of cards for gain. Upon observing an advertisement for a business in the borough of Hanover that offered tarot card readings, I engaged in a conversation with two individuals concerning the advertisement and my intent to educate the person or persons engaged in the acts about the above listed statute. There was never an investigation, nor was there any threat of arrest in this matter. With that being said, if a complaint was made against someone for engaging in acts qualifying as, quote, fortune telling in the borough of Hanover, this department would be obligated to conduct an investigation. Finally, regarding this issue, the only departmental time utilized was mine in an effort to educate someone and to prevent a future complaint or issue. If one possesses the sentiment that the statute, Pennsylvania Title 18, Section 7104, fortune telling does not protect anyone from harm and is not needed, then I would suggest their proper recourse is to contact their legislators and voice their opinion. Signed, Chad Martin, Hanover Borough Chief of Police. Chief of Police has said in his own words that he only spoke to two people. I'll read it again. I engaged in a conversation with two individuals concerning the advertisement and my intent to educate the person or persons engaged in the act about the above listed statute. So does that mean that he spoke to two concerned citizens about the shop? Or two officers? Were the two people Christians by any chance? Was it his pastor and his wife? Well, see, we have no idea. But apparently, out of the 16,000 plus residents, he only spoke to two people that prompted his need to harass a small business owner.
Yeah, that's enough.
That's how I interpret that phrase right there.
I just have a quick clarification question.
Yeah.
So is predicting the fate of my immortal soul predicting the future?
You mean like what happens in religions?
Yes.
You just hold. No, I'm about to get into that.
You mean like when I say to people, y'all motherfuckers need Jesus.
That's in the second half of my rant. Here, the first half of my rant has only just begun. Because the Serpent's Key happens to be very vocal on its website when it comes to supporting the LGBTQ plus and BIPOC community. In case you don't know what BIPOC stands for, that's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So I have to ask you folks, why do you think this shop was, so far, the only shop targeted by Chief of Police Chad Martin? Was it simply because Serpent's Key was in the newsletter? Or was it that Serpent's Key is an inclusive business? Or was it that it's run by a 26-year-old person who identifies as a they? Is Martin allowing his own faith to be intertwined in his work, as so many other cops do? Is he so full of Christianity that he felt it necessary to harass a young business owner? Because that is how it's being seen by not just me, but a lot of people on Facebook. And let's get into that for a moment, shall we? Because I've been waiting to talk about this.
I think it would be illegal for me to make that prediction.
Right? How many times have any of us been subject to that? But in reverse, throw it back at how it feels to be an employee constantly inundated with Christian nonsense where we work. From the Starbucks employee who's berated about a cup design, to the Acme cashier being told to say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, to the repugnant people that I personally had to deal with at Michael's who told us that we needed to stop selling Pride art material because they, quote, didn't support that kind of stuff. No, Christians, you are not being harassed or bullied. You collectively do this kind of shit to people all the time. And those of us who are not Christian are forced to deal with your ignorance on the daily. The Facebook responses on Chief Martin's attempt at making himself look like he's doing a community service bring up a bunch of really good points. And guess who's making these points? Other Christians. Good on them. Because, see, they're always talking about the end of the world and the second coming of Christ. Is that not an attempt to predict the future? Why are Christians exempt from this law? I have also seen that Christians hold prayer meetings specifically about the end of times and ask for money ahead of the meeting. Where are their posters saying this is all just for entertainment purposes?
Got him.
Churches preach about the future in church where folks are expected to give money before the sermon is even over. Catholics. And those same churches don't have to pay taxes on those collections, which also brings up a good point. Why should a tarot reader have to pay taxes on any money while they're doing a spiritual service then?
Amen.
It was also pointed out that investment advisors also attempt to predict the future of the stocks and bonds market using their prophetic wisdom, even though it has been proven by experts time and again that it's a waste of money. And they also charge their clients for that wisdom. Should they have a for entertainment purposes only poster on their walls?
Yes.
So see, I really thought this was going to be a non-story, just another antidote among other ridiculous laws of this Commonwealth, like not being able to purchase a car on Sunday. That's still a thing. Or not being able to catch a fish with your bare hands, which, by the way, I've done, so I'm breaking the law.
Oops.
But when you start to investigate further, it shows the level at which Christian values are constantly shoved down our throats and have weaseled their way into the laws of our land. And that's what I'm going to bring you to this wonderful Pennsylvania lawyer named Matt McClanahan, because he came up twice as being quoted, not only in this case, but also in the Iwanowitch case. He says the law is necessary to, quote, protect gullible people from being ripped off. Let me read you what Mr. McClanahan has to say. This comes directly from his own webpage. I quote, "Some practitioners of New Age religions incorporate beliefs in psychic powers into their religions. Thus, one could envision a psychic challenging the fortune-telling ban as violating the First Amendment if prosecutors start enforcing that law. I do not, however, think this argument would fly because the law has a secular purpose. The law protects gullible people from being ripped off. There are no psychics. Anyone claiming to be a psychic is either delusional or an outright fraud. When a psychic finally collects a $1 million prize from James Randi by demonstrating actual psychic or paranormal power, then I'll change my position." End quote. I would like to point out that the skeptic, James Randi, has been dead for 3 years already, so McClanahan's going to need to either update that article or contact a medium. Right now, that means that you got a lawyer in the Commonwealth who basically is saying that he wouldn't challenge the law because he personally doesn't believe in a specific aspect of someone else's religious belief system. He's decided that it's fake. This is what I've referred to before as implicit bias. And I simply say that if you ever need a lawyer, be very careful about who you choose to represent you, because they might not actually be on your side.
He should change his name to Donita Witch.
Yeah.
I got him.
I'd also like to just say that the Serpent's Key is offering oracle cards and stickers. I think the stickers are $5. The oracle card is $10. They say legalize Pennsylvania fortune telling. So if y'all want to go contribute to the store, they're doing it specifically for people who don't maybe necessarily need a tarot card reading or don't necessarily need anything from the store specifically, but still want to show their solidarity outside the state. And I think that's a really cool idea. And I am going to be getting myself a sticker. Hell yeah.
It's a weird argument for me because I do see the need to protect people from flim-flam men and women, because I've personally seen family members spend money that they don't have on psychics because they just need this peace of mind because they're just overcome with grief or anxiety or whatever. Yeah. So I do see an importance for being protected, but as somebody who regularly does tarot and all sorts of what someone call like divination practices, I see an importance for freedom of religion in that aspect, because that is just a bunch of bullshit, what people can get away with.
My father spent thousands of dollars of our money sending it to the bakers, Tammy Faye, for example, okay, in the 80s and 90s, to a Christian fake organization. He never got any of that money back. There is nothing that anybody could ever do about it because it was a Christian organization. And while they did time for supposedly screwing other people out of like millions of dollars, those followers who maybe lost, upwards of $5,000, right? Wow. That money would be great for my mother right now with the situation that we're currently in. Unfortunately, she'll never get that money back, but that was okay. So where's the protection for that kind of flim-flam artist?
Right.
I think they're one and the same.
Exactly.
Right. You could make that same argument about how predatory somebody like, I mean, he's not in Pennsylvania, but like a Peter Popoff does the same thing. He just is a flim-flam man who uses Christianity.
Right. But yet it's always the Christians coming back and saying that, oh, we're getting attacked. We're this, we're that. Well, maybe you deserve it in some aspects like that. You are allowing people to talk for you.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the thing. You're allowing those people to represent you as a religion, and that's bullshit.
People still show up every fucking Sunday, whether he's been ousted or not. Like, you know what I mean? It's that shit that's bothersome. Like,
and to be fair, there are plenty of Christians who I know who do the right thing, who are trying, who are out there saying, I don't want this person to represent me. We need to stop. But yet it's because of the money.
Yeah.
A lot of problems going on currently that all have to do with money. So, we're coming up on Yule tide again. So I can't wait to see what the next thing is going to be. It's like
those damn Starbucks cups, and
again, like you got nothing else. Like I'll give you an example again of like what I've had to deal with personally. My father's unfortunately made a lot of bad choices when it came to hanging out with the wrong crowd, which were fundamentalist Christians. And that's really who I'm targeting anyway. And I think you guys know after listening to 117 fucking episodes that
that's a whole other level of
the non-denominational,
like what just came out of your fucking mouth, dude. Like it's a whole other level of it.
Yeah. So we got into it. My sisters and I got into one of the churches that he was going to locally. That was a non-denominational. They wanted to get money to go to Africa. And, my sister just said, well, no offense, but why are we going to Africa? There are people right here talking about like the Quakertown area, right? She's like, there's homeless people. There's a whole problem down here. We've got some addicts. She made a good point. She's like, why aren't you helping the locals? Like, you're literally right there in the center of it. Like, you need to be focused on here. And their excuse that they basically were like, well, we do our part for the locals. And she's like, when's the last time you did anything? Zero response. And then she kept getting attacked on Facebook by these Christian people were like attacking her and, saying that she was just anti. And she's like, well, it's not that I'm anti-Christian. I'm anti what you're doing. This is not Christianity. What you're doing actually is wrong.
Yes. So, do you just hear the police siren drive past as you say what you were doing is wrong? The police drove past my house. Just
Bye, Kiki. Bye.
So
they're carting me away.
Yeah,
I'll
I
visit you in
agree.
prison.
I 100% agree. I would say, quick story time, the only time I think I've ever had a positive experience in church was when I went to Florida, where my late brother used to go to church, because they lived in the slums of Tampa, and their church was mostly homeless people. And when we went to church that Sunday, my brother played all the music for the church, and he was very religious. He would play the music for the entire service, and then as soon as the service ended, he would walk back through a door, and in the back of the church was just a bunch of donations, and the people would spend the rest of the Sunday divvying out clothes and food to the people who were in the church that needed it. That is what a church should be fucking doing. Not just touting bullshit and kicking homeless people out on the street because they have muddy fucking shoes.
Yeah. I mean, I have seen and experienced a lot in the church because I was born in the church. But, and it's a difficult topic for me because I could go on a rant. I have been scarred by the church, but also I've seen such good come out of it. And I know that truly good people who want to represent the word exist, but so often I see it distorted.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I think it's like a systemic kind of thing. Like, not every Christian is a horrible, greedy, money-hungry, like, human being. Like, my parents used to go on mission trips every single year. My dad would use almost 100% of his vacation time at work to go to places to build houses after hurricanes hit and shit with the churches in the area. Like, good comes from it, but it's like, then you read these other stories where, like, it's completely predatory, and it's like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah. So to sum up, I will call out the Christians, the fundies especially, on the bullshit because, yes, I lived it. I was in a Catholic church first. I've been very open about that. I have friends who are Protestants, so I've actually been to Protestant churches as well. Then after that, unfortunately, we left the Catholic Church to go directly to fundamental crazy pants Christianity. And
the deep end, if you would.
Everybody by now knows what I'm talking about, who I'm calling out, and why. So just know, I know y'all are out there that are trying to do a good job. I don't know what else to do other than to say scream louder and tell the rest of them to shut the hell up because they're making y'all look bad.
I feel like it's kind of like the same stance that people have on, like, the police, where it's like, technically, yeah, not every police is a bad police officer. Yeah, one bad egg in a bunch, but, like, the rest should be, like, going to that bad egg and be like, hey, can you stop being a fucking dick, please? Like, you're making everyone else look bad.
There are now people calling for this chief of police to be fired because and oddly enough, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, specifically Philadelphia Inquirer, they were pissed because they're like, you are taking time out. And then it was funny that his response was, I was using my personal time, but he showed up in uniform. So what was your personal? You're in your fucking uniform. And I'm sorry, but if you're trying to educate somebody, you don't intimidate them. You don't make them feel intimidated, and you don't almost threaten them with like, well, if I hear anything about this from, I'm going to be down here. It's like, dude, the sign is up that I'm supposed to have up. So you're not actually educating me because I already knew. That's why I had to put the sign up. You're not offering me any help in how to prevent people from accusing me of things I haven't done, right? It wasn't really a friendly to me. It's like if he was really being friendly, he'd be like, hey, I just came down. I saw you were in the thing. Oh, I see you have the sign up. Perfect. Great. I just wanted to make sure you knew about the law because I don't want you getting in any trouble. But I already see you have the sign up, so that's fantastic. Hey, if you need any help, just let us know.
Right.
You know, we're at your disposal. None of that was said.
No. Yeah, my takeaway is, you know, all you tarot readers out there, fight the good fight. Stand up for your religion. Don't let people put you into a corner. And all you can do is go the legal route and fight for your equal rights that you deserve.
Yeah, just don't ask that one lawyer to help you because apparently he don't believe in it, so he's not going to help you.
Yet avoid Juana Van Lawyer.
And don't con people.
What did I call him?
People.
Don't want to witch.
don't need a witch.
Don't need a witch. Don't need a witch.
Yeah, and don't con people. But see, again, I think that the way to go is the licensing, just like other states have, where you have to go through a criminal background check because Juana Witch would definitely not get a license. She's got priors.
I think it gets into another argument,
You know?
right? It gets into another argument because you need a license to spread your religion. If we're going on the argument of religious freedom as far as like fortune telling is concerned.
I think the license then becomes if you're just okay, you can come over to my house right now and I'll do a rune reading for you, but as long as no money is exchanged, I don't need a license. If money is being exchanged, now we have a problem because we do need to protect citizens to make sure that you're not doing what Juana Witch did, right?
Fair, but then, like I said, you're running into that issue of, the church does it.
Right.
Why can't I do it? What if you registered as a church? Could you be a fortune teller so long as your profit was donations to your church?
Yeah, see, that's because then you have to be you gotta be a 501, right? You got to make that out. So you're gonna have to pay money for your IRS stuff, and you have to get a tax exempt status, right? So there's a way to do it. But even in Pennsylvania, or I'm sure other places, you still have to go through all this paperwork and pay for all this stuff to become a church. So if you look at it from that standpoint, it is a good revenue, a source of revenue for Pennsylvania if they just want to hand out licenses and get rid of the fucking dumbass law from 1860.
Sure.
I'm more supportive of that idea than the it's absolutely illegal idea.
The song that I have chosen for today from the amazingly talented Jhariah, Bad Luck. And you can find this song on Jhariah's album, A Beginner's Guide to Faking Your Death. I love it. And he was just recently on tour, had an amazing tour. I love this kid. He's just freaking great. He's from New York City. When we get back, I'm going to spew off a bunch of crap about how to contact us and where to follow us. It's otherwise known as Spooky Squad News.
This time around's no different. I've played with chance like you. I loved to toy with fate, but oh, I didn't have a clue that I would love or I would lose. Between the left and right, we're dating out to choose. And I would be about like you, I'm not who these things happen to. And that's exactly what you say before they do. I can't dance like I used to. I don't have the same moves as you. That's okay, fortune finds your way to someone who needs it much more than me. Every day, human error and blame bad luck. It seems the timing's always wrong. Forever one to wait too long. Never catch a break.
All right, yeah, welcome back. We're all hungry and want to go.
I'm not even hungry.
Just want to go.
I think my dog's hungry.
I got taters waiting.
You got taters. I have Indian food that's gonna blow a new hole in my intestine. But I don't care.
Jess was supposed to start cooking, but she went to Baltimore with her friend.
She left.
So I guess I'm on my own for dinner.
Do you want to come over? I made fucking pork and sauerkraut.
Oh shit!
Oh my god! You
Damn
tempt me, but I need to clean my house.
With or without edibles was the question.
Well, after this episode, I think my choice has been made.
Yeah. Okay. So You can join our Patreon if you'd like to. We have levels at the $1, $3, and $5. One single buck gets you our undying gratitude, a shout out on the cast, and access to our boober reels, and also access to archived episodes that we did on the States back when it was just me and JC. JC is taking a break. As we have said many times, he'll be back very soon, and we'll pick up those States episodes again. So those are on hold. The boober reels are still going out. $3 level gets you access to the stat block cards, and the creature art cards for our Cord versus Cryptid that you can download, plus the new episodes of these States when we start them back up again. And then Cord and I started doing the magic stuff. So we've got bone magic, metal nail magic, feather magic, working on tree magic. It's going to be kind of cool. And then $5, basically you're just supporting us because you love us. We do have an extra Discord for that. We had all kinds of stuff planned, and then the company that we were going to do extra stuff with folded. So that sucked. Yeah, we were going to do movies. It was going to be fun. Remember, we were going to have like the special Discord movie night, and you were going to be able to actually watch a movie. And it was, that company folded. So we couldn't, and there's no replacement in sight. So I was hoping, but anyway, $5 gets you access to a special Discord channel, and we have run a couple of specials. I'll probably do one again during the Yule season when I have off with the kids, so that'll be fun. And we are on Threads, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook, and we are on TikTok. Those are the places you can find us, and it's all under Mission Spooky. Yeah, okay. TikTok now has our movie reviews and our music reviews going up there. And we also have our merch store at Fourth Wall. That's in our bio in Instagram. And also, I've started putting stuff out on TikTok, so you can see it before you purchase it. So there's my art that's up there. I recently had a show in October, sold a couple pieces. So I'm back in it. I'm back being an acrylic art person. I don't know what to say. It's there. Yeah, so we got our t-shirts and stuff up on Fourth Wall, and we'll have new t-shirt designs coming in that I'm doing, and then also my artwork. And we have another artist that actually is doing these cute little crocheted creatures and stuff. Pretty cool. It's got like a little Cthulhu coming. Yeah, it's going to be neat. And all of that just goes to support the podcast and us. Help us out a little bit. Taking us out once again is going to be Jhariah with his song, Bad Luck. And just remember to stay spooky and don't die. But if you do, contact us.
Reach out to your local psychic. Make sure that you include one with a sign on the door saying for entertainment purposes only. You don't want to be sued into the afterlife.
My legs drag behind me, and they breathe in syncopated time. But I know that one day I will lose them too. I didn't have a clue. And I would do it again. Not sorry, but thank you. for enduring me. As long as you do, it's more than I'd ever ask of you.
You know, legend says that Bigfoot is up to 15 feet, but I've found that most of the time they just have 2.
I knew you were gonna fucking. I knew it. I knew the punchline before you said it. I love it.
You're welcome. I think I might leave that one for the very, very end, like after the song, and see if anybody listens all the way through to the song. That'd be so funny.